Good evening. The eager viewers present to you caveat emptor. Hopefully that's how it's pronounced. In simple terms, it is a Latin phrase which simply means let the buyer be aware and is a warning to someone buying something that it is their responsibility to identify and accept any faults in it. Now, apart from this, of course, there's always more to understand beyond the meaning. So let's jump straight into that.
Let us now understand the doctrine of caveat emptor through an example. If Mr. Akash decides to buy a car from Miss Jyoti, then Akash is responsible for obtaining the details to make an informed purchase. He would then ask her about the fuel efficiency of the vehicle, whether any components need to be replaced, if it is regularly serviced, and so on. But if Akash merely buys a car for the price he asks and makes little to no attempt to determine its true worth, and the car eventually breaks down, then Miss Jyoti cannot be held responsible for the damages under the doctrine of caveat emptor.
There are certain exemptions in this concept, first being fraud or misrepresentation by the seller. This is a significant exemption. Caveat emptor does not apply if the seller gets the buyer's consent through deception. Furthermore, if the vendor conceals any material faults in the items that are later revealed upon closer inspection, the buyer is not liable. The seller will be found guilty in both the circumstances.
If the buyer buys his goods after examining a sample, then the rule of doctrine of caveat emptor will not apply. If the rest of the goods do not resemble the sample, the buyer cannot be held responsible. In this case, the seller will be the one responsible. A places an order for 50 toy cars with B. He checks one sample where the car is red. The rest of the cars turn out to be orange. Here, the rule of doctrine of caveat emptor will not apply, and B will be the one responsible.
6. Merchantability. Merchantability refers to the obligation of a seller to offer goods that are of prescribed standards and that of merchantability quality in the market. If a customer or purchaser finds a default in any of the prescribed standards, then this becomes an implied condition for the sales contract to be void and an exemption to caveat emptor.
Fifth exemption, fitness of product for the buyer's purpose. If the buyer mentions his purpose of buying the good to the seller, it is expected that the seller gives a suitable product for the desired usage, because it is implied that the buyer is relying on the seller's judgment. This can be seen in the case of Priest vs. Lust, where it was the business of the chemist to know that the bottle wasn't fit for holding hot water, as clearly stated by the buyer. Thus, it was held that the condition as to fitness is not met in this case.
Thus, it can be concluded that the rule of caveat emptor helps in creating a consumer-oriented market by laying responsibility on the buyer in case of any defect on the goods bought, so that appropriate balance can be maintained between the rights and obligations of buyers and sellers. It's a contract law principle with some exceptions applying to this doctrine, which were explained earlier in the video. If these exceptions are proved, then the buyer can recover compensation.